Thank you. So, we're living in a bizarro world. We are living in a bizarro world, okay? And while this is happening, while critical cargo is being blocked, while the border is being still blocked, even though critical infrastructure, apparently a dud, even though the farmers basically sabotage fellow farmers because the food spoils and cannot be exported to Ukraine. Even though at the same time the US still is blocking aid, there's one party, one group that is just super happy about what's happening. There's one group that is so happy about what's happening. So happy, in fact, that they're discussing their options. They're discussing how can they capitalize on their current advantage. You know? It's wild. Unironically. So there's one group that's been very happy with what's happening. And you know who that is. You all know who that is. It's Russia. Yes, spoiler alert. It's Russia. And so the pundits have been discussing
Это
here.
важная репутация.
How can they capitalize on this window of weakness, on this window of opportunity? For farmers mainly growing grain, it's the slow time of year. And if people believe, rightly or wrongly, that they are going to be negatively affected, they can make time to strike. Warning, this is misinformation. I'm gonna watch pundits discuss how to use
Это важная
this time window of opportunity to push into Ukraine. In a reputational sense, this is important for Ukraine.
репутационная история для Украины, что самый
The biggest fortified area that was a threat to Donetsk
крупный укрепрайон, который угрожал Донецку, он сейчас
was liquidated.
у украинцев ликвидирован. С другой
On the other hand, we shouldn't overestimate it.
стороны, не нужно его и переоценивать. К сожалению, от Авдеевки до...
I mean, yeah, you shouldn't. You've lost more soldiers than, I don't know, 10 years in Afghanistan or something. So yeah, I agree, pundit. You shouldn't overestimate it. True and real. You shouldn't. Definitely not. All things considered.
Oh, Barry!
Thank you, Malaki, for giving me some for the protest fund. Thank you.
Вашингтона пока далеко.
Unfortunately, Avdiivka is ways away from Washington. What? What the fuck? Oh my god. The pundits in Russia never fail to disappoint me with entertainment. Unfortunately, Avdiivka is ways away from Washington. Okay, my man. Okay, dude. God. This is just...
А вы прям туда пойдем?
Are we going there? This is a comedy show, I swear. As always, the Russian... Are we going there? Oh my god. We needed some levity.
Ну, мы же вроде как по
According to the statements of our leaders,
заявлениям наших руководителей,
we're fighting against NATO. So maybe we are going there. Maybe we are going straight to Washington. That's pretty ghoulish. It is. We are fighting against NATO.
боремся с НАТО, в общем-то, да, посредством
in an indirect way on the territory of Ukraine.
на территории Украины. И поэтому здесь нужно понимать,
We should understand that for the Russian army, which had more losses than 10 years in Afghanistan,
сейчас самая лучшая ситуация для российской армии
it's the best situation since the start of the spec mill up. It's the best situation since the start of the special military operation. That is so pathetic. That is the most pathetic thing. That the only way for the Russian army to have the best situation since the beginning of the war is if the US cuts aid, if Ukraine has a critical shortage of munition. That is so pathetic. Like, that the Russian army cannot win on its own, sort of, you know? That it cannot sort of gain ground on its own. No, it actually, the West has to assist Russia in its victory by denying Ukraine aid. Because that's what it is at the end of the day. US not giving aid to Ukraine is aiding Russia, as we can clearly see from the statements here. It's the best situation since the start of the special military operation. Thank you. House Speaker. Mike Johnson, was it?
с начала СВО. Почему? Потому что
Why? Because Ukraine is retreating. There is no money.
Украина отступает, денег нету,
There are problems with mobilization. Well, that's a bit more complicated with the mobilization thing. It just takes time.
проблемы с мобилизацией. Вопрос, как будет
So how will this window of opportunity be used? The fact that this window of opportunity even exists, it's like remarkably horrible.
использовано это окно возможностей. Какая тактика у
What is Russia's tactic? I think that it is as follows.
России? Я думаю, что тактика
Shell-starved. Shell-starved by fellow GOP. Which reminds me, again, I will plead with you to contact your local representatives and do anything you can possibly do to pressure them for aid for Ukraine if you're in the US. This is critical. This is pretty critical, as you can see. What is Russia's tactic? I think that it is as follows.
такая.
Simultaneously with our military successes,
Параллельно с военными успехами мы слышим, как наш
we hear our president repeating over and over again,
президент вновь и вновь повторяет: мы готовы к
we are ready for a resolution of the conflict.
урегулированию конфликта. Сейчас
Yeah, we're ready for a pause that will allow us to rebuild our forces and try again. Right now, the goal is to force Ukrainians
задача продавить украинцев на то, чтобы они поняли,
to understand that the resistance is futile
что сопротивление бесполезно, и отдали все миру.
and peaceably hand everything over. That is basically what Russia means when they are talking about peace. Take note, all the people that are saying that Ukraine should just negotiate. Take notes. Paul's ego. I'm being weirdly specific here, but yes, take notes. All people that say Ukraine should just, negotiate. They should not, endless war. Yeah,
И вот на это, на то, чтобы
that is what Russia wants. Just,
они поняли, что сопротивление бесполезно, и отдали
just negotiate and peacefully hand everything over. That's the key, isn't it? Just let's go for peace.
все миром. И вот на это, мне кажется, в Кремле делают ставку.
I believe that the Kremlin is betting on this.
Что я не верится мне в такую резкую
Ivan Trushkin. I don't believe this will suddenly happen.
приход адекватности
О
в
том,
Киеве.
что Украина
I doubt that the Kremlin is betting
отдастся миром, я сомневаюсь, что в Кремле делают.
that Ukraine will peaceably hand it all over. Like, what sort of an idiot would? I mean, there are many people in the West that are pushing for it, certainly, by saying that Ukraine should just negotiate. Or even Ben Shapiro, that outright said that the US should force Ukraine to negotiate. And we see what kind of negotiation Russia is in favor for. Or just Ukraine should just, peaceably hand it all over. That's the sort of negotiation Russia is looking for. Amazing. Really, really a win-win situation. That would be great for Ukraine. To just peaceably hand everything over. That is an amazing idea. People should look more to the Russian perspective to see what it actually is. And maybe wake up a little bit.
ставка, потому что люди там трезвые, они
Because these are sober-minded people.
прекрасно понимают, что при любой ситуации ни Зеленский,
They understand.
ни другой. Трезвые, они прекрасно понимают, что при любой
They understand that in any scenario,
ситуации ни Зеленский, ни
neither Zelensky or any other Ukrainian leader
другой руководитель Украины никогда не
will ever say to their troops,
скажет своим войскам: мы уходим из города Запорожье.
we are leaving Zaporozhye and giving it to Russians. Why would he? Why would any sane leader just give up land to Russia, knowing what Russia does in occupation land? Bucha, for example. Why? Are you kidding me?
Отдаем это
Ну, не
русским.
Зеленский, конечно.
Definitely not Zelensky.
Ну, я сказал, любой другой. Это
As I said, neither would any other leader.
политическая смерть, раз.
Hey, we have to eliminate all leaders. We have to eliminate the whole Ukrainian leadership. Ukraine cannot have leadership because any Ukrainian leader will just, they're not gonna hand us over stuff. That's unacceptable. It would mean their political death
И два, это вызовет серьезный внутренний бунт. Это можно только
and cause a significant internal revolt, which is ironic considering all things considered how the political landscape in Russia looks like.
забрать силы.
It can only be taken by force. Oh, see, so actually they would love for Ukraine to hand over everything peacefully, but they actually know that the only way for them is conquest. So there you go. Conquest is the only way for Russia.
К сожалению, таковы исторические примеры.
Unfortunately, this is the historic precedent. Yeah, that does seem to be the historic precedent for Russia, doesn't it? That it is forced to take everything by force. Right? Chechnya, Georgia, Ukraine, in the past Poland as well. It's just, it's an unfortunate historical precedent. Russia is just being basically historically has been forced to invade and take over other countries. Russian pundits, Russian TV pundits. It's just, it's unfortunate, isn't it? An unfortunate historic precedent that Russia just needs, those other stubborn countries, they will just not give their stuff peacefully. They're just not hand stuff over peacefully, and so there is this necessity to just invade and take it all by force. It's a very unfortunate historical precedent.
Петров третьих много не бывает, скажем так.
There can't be many like Peter III.
И
It is true. This situation creates a window of opportunity.
в этой ситуации действительно абсолютно правильно создается у нас некое окно возможностей, которое позволит
That would allow us to conduct a tandem operation.
нам делать, по всей видимости, тандемную операцию. С одной стороны,
On one hand, conduct an offensive, which unfortunately they are conducting, and even if you have the best troops in the universe, they will not be able to do anything if they don't have the means to fight, ammunition, weapons.
действительно вести наступление. И второй тренд
On the other hand, conduct negotiations. But the question is with whom? With whom do you want to conduct the negotiations? That is a pretty critical question. Is it going to be with Ukrainians or with somebody else?
это действительно ведение переговоров, по крайней мере, предложение
At least proposing negotiations, but not to Ukraine. Not to Ukraine.
переговоров, но не Украине. американцев.
To Americans. See? Ukrainian is not even an entity to sit at the table of negotiations. No, 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 no. It's not Ukrainians that are going to be negotiating. It's the Americans. The Americans and the Russians are going to be basically partitioning Ukraine, which also partitioning countries seems to be an unfortunate precedent for Russia. Historical precedent.
Крупнейшие американские биржи
America's biggest betting exchanges are taking bets
ставок, они принимают ставки, какой следующий
ладно.
Они
город.
принимают
as to which city is the next to be liberated by Russia. This is... Thank you, GOP. Thank you for giving Russia this window of opportunity. That is so wonderful of you.
ставки на все.
БЦФ принимает ставки, какой следующий город Россия
Their favorites are Kherson and Zaporizhia.
освободит.
Правда?
Фавориты Херсон и Запорожье.
Цинично.
Наименьший
Kiev is considered to be the least likely.
вариант Киев. Ну, наименьший шанс.
At least this is what I saw today.
По крайней мере, я такой скрин сегодня
До Краматорска
видел.
зайти еще.
You'd have to get to Krematorsk first.
Дойдем, Андрей Иванович, вы не
Не
волнуйтесь.
переживай.
We will get there. Don't you worry. That is nice that they can be speaking like that because, again, keep in mind, Russian forces are not able to gain victories on their own. No, actually, they need support from the West. They need Ukrainian forces to be sufficiently starved in order to be able to conduct an offensive.
Дойдем.
Мы не знаем,
This is infuriating, actually.
где Россия готова остановиться.
We don't know where Russia is willing to stop.
А никто не...
Соответственно, и, так сказать, база для
А пусть
переговоров.
Let them be tormented.
мучаются. Пусть мучаются.
Yeah, let them be tormented.
Гадают, где же Россия остановится?
Let them suffer trying to guess where Russia will stop. This is so messed up. This is... Before when I was talking about the grain, about the protest of the Polish farmers, I said it was peak Polishness. This is peak Russia.
Есть
Пусть
программа
спят
минимум
плохо. Знаете, как
восстановления
анекдот про
You know, like that joke about the Jews.
евреев,
регионов,
которые там
восстановление
ездили.
границ.
Так, тихо,
The joke about the Jews. Quiet, hold on, I can't hear anything.
подождите,
на
я не
границе,
слышу.
конечно.
Ну, в общем, да, все,
И всё.
Well, everyone can be tormented to no end.
все могут мучиться сколько
Да.
угодно, но без вот этих
But you can't predict anything not knowing that.
знаний, предсказывать и тем более
А не надо ничего
оценивать
предсказать. А скажите,
перспективы переговоров.
We've spoken about political and military perspectives.
А вот если,
невозможно.
как бы это сказать, вот политические, да,
How about on a domestic level?
военные там некие итоги. А у вас была возможность,
Did you have any contacts in recent days?
так вот скажем, бытовые какие-то, ну, все-таки, может быть, были какие-то...
What does the population say? I wonder if we'll get a very real, very sort of objective, sort of. Yeah, we're about to learn what the population truly thinks and says.
какие-то контакты за последние. Население что говорит?
The
Население
population is unquestionably tired.
на самом деле устало,
А то у
безусловно.
Андрея Владимировича всегда...
The population is still afraid of the mobilization.
Население
Oh, I mean, I can agree with that.
по-прежнему боится мобилизации, население устало.
The population is tired.
Они вообще знают правду?
I mean, I would say that about Russia, actually.
Авдеевку, что-нибудь, что свой.
Do they even know about Avdiivka?
Знают, конечно.
Знают, да?
Of course they know about it.
Ну,
Знают,
не знаю, мало ли там кто.
Вот.
The population is very afraid.
Но население
Which population? Russian or Ukrainian?
очень боится.
Afraid of whom? Or what? Of NATO?
Боится чего? Или кого?
Боится,
Нас или
боится
местных?
говорить.
They are afraid to speak up.
А, ну, значит, они своих
Вот,
боятся.
So they are afraid of their own. That has to be about Russia, right? This has to be about. That sounds like they're describing the population of Russia, and ironically, are they supposed to be talking about Ukraine? What is happening? I'm confused here. I'm in a state of confusion.
Боится
I'm in a state of Confucius.
говорить, своих боится.
Yes, afraid to speak up, afraid of their own. Jesus. So there you have it. The one party, the one group that is in fact very jolly, very giddy about what's happening with the protests in the European Union, which, let's not pretend that it's not a destabilizing factor during this war. Let's not pretend that a Europe-wide protest of farmers is not some sort of destabilizing element, and that Russia is not extremely happy that it's happening. And, of course, the freezing of aid to Ukraine in the United States. Yeah, of course. Of course, the Russian pundits are gonna happily wonder how they can capitalize such a window of opportunity. And it's all thanks to, well, you all know what it's all about. Great. Aren't you happy? Aren't you happy to live in such interesting times? Aren't you grateful? Aren't you feeling grateful about living in such extremely interesting times? Isn't it the best feeling in the world?